introduce ourselves, a little bit of our background, and then kind of bring to you just an idea of what is behind the nature of the name and the meaning, and hopefully what we're going to try to accomplish. And we've got a great year planned out that I think we're excited about, and go from there. So, my name is Justin Darren. My nickname is Jut. I have been in the ministry for almost 20 years. I come out of the Churches of Christ Christian churches, born and raised in a Christian home. Went to Great Lakes Bible College, or Christian College in Lansing, and I had my first ministry in Algonac, at the Algonac Church of Christ. I was a youth minister there for about 6.5 years. Great ministry, great times, good memories there. Took about a year off and came here to Central Michigan to the St. Louis Church of Christ, which is actually where I had my undergrad internship with, and was youth minister for a couple years, then transitioned to the lead minister, and been there over 12 years. I have a great wife. We'll be celebrating our 18th anniversary this year. Got 5 awesome kids. I don't know, consider myself probably on the conservative side of things, probably from a biblical standpoint, probably other social issues and things of that nature. I like video games. I love board games. Have dabbled our toes here the last few years in some martial arts stuff with Taekwondo and Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a fair weather hunter. And I have a lot of my dad's fishing gear that the kids keep saying, we should go fishing. Yeah, we should. That has not happened. So, I don't know. That's probably me in a nutshell.
I'll go next. I'm Nathan Workman. I've been in full-time ministry since the fall of '98. Wow, that seems like a long time. I suddenly feel very old. 98, I was just realizing this, that was a big summer. That was the last championship of the Bulls. That summer was the big baseball home run race between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. And we moved to Mayo. So all 3 of those things, all in one summer. 2 of those only made national news.
Mayo's never made national news.
It has, but never in a good
We won't go there.
That's forensic files. So from there, about 12 years in student ministry, 2 churches that I was privileged to lead their student ministry. And then for the last now 10 years, have been here in St. Louis. So yeah, that seems like it's gone very quickly. I have 2 kids. They are both grown. Abby is in her last year at Cornerstone, doing some student teaching. And then our son just left for Navy boot camp, which we finally got a phone call from him last Sunday, and that was really great to be able to talk to him. Things are going well there, so we're thrilled about all of that. My wife is a school teacher in the Ithaca school system. I think she's been there for 17 years now, something of that nature. And personal standpoint, I'm a big sports fan. Love sports. I still try and play occasionally some sports. It doesn't always go well, but coaching. I love coaching. So had the privilege the last several years to coach a junior high basketball team. So that's been a ton of fun. That's me kind of in a nutshell. I think similarly from a theological standpoint, probably in the conservative end of things, but and we'll kind of talk about what that means for what we're doing here.
Those words have so many meanings,
right.
Different meanings to different people, but
that's me in a short little shot.
I'm Jake Gregory. I have been in ministry full-time for the last 6 years, all here in St. Louis. Come from the Church of the Nazarene tradition. So this is my first church, and been here now going 6 years, in my 7th year. So it's hard to believe it's been that long. Yeah. It's been quite a ride, especially the last couple of years.
Yes.
Nathan and I also are the directors for our homeless shelter here in Gratiot County, where we live, and are in the final stages of merging our churches and co-pastoring. So it's been quite quite an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school at Olivet Nazarene University in Illinois, and did an undergraduate and graduate degree there. So before moving up here, my wife and I have been married for 7 years. We've got 2 kids and one coming very, very soon. So it could be any day. My oldest, Carter, is 5, and then Darren is our soon-to-be middle child. He's 3, and we'll have baby Hallie here, like I say, any day. So I enjoy outdoor sports. We've got a place up north. I like to do lake stuff and do a lot of snowmobiling, and I'm a deer hunter, not fair weather. I'll do it regardless of the weather. So, and I would say probably more on the moderate conservative side of things theologically. So,
yeah. Once you get past 3 kids, you don't remember their names, their ages, or anything. So, it's all good. So gospel jazz. This is, again, while we've all been kind of thinking about this and working on this for the better part of a year. Nathan, this was really kind of more of your vision and your heartbeat. But I think it encapsulated, I think, kind of where we were all at. So do you want to share?
Yeah. Just thinking back to kind of origins for us, this idea really picked up speed when COVID happened, and the world shut down for a while, and we just kind of morphed a roundtable conversation in this room.
mm-hmm.
I don't know, it was the 3rd or 4th week that the shutdown was happening, and we said, maybe we should do this on a regular basis. And so we just started talking and did some planning, and it kind of landed on this idea that we should have intentional conversations with other spiritual leaders, not just pastors, but and a conversation that propels what it means to follow Christ down the road a little bit further. And so as we started talking about that, we're like, okay, what should we name it? What should we call it? Because if you don't have a name, then there's a possibility that you're not going to do what you need to do to propel the conversation. So I started thinking about, and I'm not sure what spurred this thought in my mind, but I was thinking about my daughter having been in a jazz ensemble or really a jazz band through high school, and learning about what jazz means and what it looks like. And in jazz music, all music is built on a basic platform of we're going to be in this key, and so that means we play these additional notes or pieces of the music, and we stay on task. Now, jazz takes that very simple foundation, and you can teach. I wouldn't say anybody, but almost anybody to play music and understand how music is structured. And if I play a horn, then I need to push down, these buttons, and then I make that sound. So you can teach almost anybody to play an instrument and keep within that structure of music. Jazz says, okay, there's a structure that fits over this whole song, and everybody in the jazz band largely is going to play that structured music, and they're going to stay within this key, and they're going to play these notes, and this is how it progresses through the song. But jazz takes it to the next level and says, what else can we do within the song? And so you'll hear jazz musicians break off while everybody else is playing the melody of the song. They kind of break off and run the gamut of just almost anything that their instrument can make a sound in. This is true of horns and any of the woodwinds. This is true of guitars, both lead guitars, solo guitarists, even bass guitars, and including drums. But you can have this structure, and then one musician will kind of take off and play all over the place, but come back and rejoin the thing that has been going behind that solo. And when jazz music is done well, it is a treat. It is amazing. And the high school that my kids went to is Ithaca High School, and they, for a long time, a bunch of years, had a terrific jazz band. And I know that there's still some efforts to try and keep that going. It is harder now than it ever has been to add things to kids' plates. But for a long time, my daughter had the privilege of being a part of one of those really good jazz bands.
Yeah.
And just going and listening to and understanding and learning what jazz music does and how it's built and how you start on this arc and everybody's playing on this arc and there's somebody that, and you can have multiple solos within a given jazz song, and they start here and they run all over while everybody else is playing the song, and then they rejoin and continue the arc. And so in thinking about what we're doing here, there is a song that began a long time ago. The song that not the church began. It didn't begin when Constantine formalized the church. It didn't even begin with Moses. It begins with God and him. Some scholars say God sung the universe into being. That word that is used, that God said, I created, some interpretations go, it actually means he sang the universe into being, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a song that was begun, and as players in the song, because we're invited to play the music, we have the opportunity to kind of go off script. Not that we change the message, not at all, because if a player in a jazz band gets off the mark too far and can't get back, the whole song falls apart. So we have to be careful that we stay within the song. But there is a good deal of freedom. Maybe this is where the church has struggled.
Yeah.
There's a good deal of freedom within the song that we have the opportunity to understand, interpret, and apply what the song is saying in the context that we live in right now. That can cause some people some consternation, some difficulty. But,
well, I just think, right, how many people in whatever church circle you're a part of, right, think that they're on the right trajectory,
sure,
right, or that they're playing the right notes exactly. We may have mentioned this in another podcast, I don't remember, but the Elephant in the Room series that all those big famous nationwide pastors took part in a few years ago. You know, T.D. Jakes was a part of that, you know, and as an African American pastor, I remember him saying, he says, we don't have that luxury in the inner city African American churches. And it is more of that concert of jazz, right? Like, we're all going to work together, we're all going to band together. And you know, the same thing, right? You may be a key above me or a key below or whatever, but we're all at least recognize that we're on the same team. We serve the same Lord. We're reading from the same book.
Yeah.
We're heading in the same direction.
Yeah.
You just may be doing it a little bit differently than I'm doing it. But I just thought luxury. I thought it was very interesting. We didn't have the luxury of that. And to me, I think this whole thing, especially, I mean, I think it's been a heartbeat of this ministerial association for many, many years anyway.
Yeah.
They have a good fellowship among all of our different churches, from, you know, the Pentecostal churches to our more maybe higher churches, the Methodist church, and kind of our, whatever you label our movements, no,
right?
Somewhere in between or whatever. But I think especially with these last 4 or 5 months of COVID, you go, you say we're all in this together. Are we? I hope we are, because we saw just how fast things can go sideways.
Yeah.
And you know what? You may not take communion like I take communion, or you may not baptize like I baptize, but, oh, brother, there's much more important things.
Right.
So, it just, I don't know. I love the analogy, and just as you explained it here, you know, with that passion, I think months ago, we were like, yeah, that's it. That is it. So, gospel jazz.
Yeah.
But do you want to introduce the scripture? This little devotional thought for kind of cap things out.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
You picked the passage, not me.
Fine.
So, kind of what we wanted to do, we wanted to introduce what gospel jazz really means, at least what it means to us.
Yeah.
And kind of tell you who we are. And again, some of these early published videos are going to be from the initial conversation that took place back in the spring of this year. But we wanted this morning, we wanted to today just kind of give you, again, some scriptural understanding of where we're coming from and what we are kind of leaning into. So this is from Hebrews chapter 6, the first verse, and really it's just the first half of verse 1. And the writer here says, therefore, let us move beyond the elementary teachings about Christ and be taken forward to maturity. And again, at the risk of taking things out of context and stopping there, to be very, maybe even overly simplistic, because Paul goes into some detail about what it means to move into maturity and moving beyond the elementary things. But just to stop there, let us move beyond the elementary things and move forward to maturity. That is really the heartbeat of this conversational series, I guess you can call it, is that we acknowledge that, and again, this reflects a little bit of the whole jazz piece and that analogy. Moving the conversation about what it means to follow Jesus, who he is, what he's come to do, how that shows up in the 21st century, specifically in central Michigan. And not just going, well, this is black and this is white and there is no gray, and this actually is very simple. And I don't get this sense from you guys. This is not simple. Mm-hmm. This is not rudimentary. It is not something that needs to remain elementary. I think it's important to have the hard conversations and to move beyond, okay, here's some stuff that I've always believed. And not that I'm going to throw that away or I'm here to tear down the thing that I grew up with. But does that remain true? Mm-hmm. It's okay to question my own sense of heritage, my own even growing up, my sense of what it means to follow God. I think those are good questions. God's not afraid of our questions, right? And we can't be either. We can't look at that raft of questions and go, don't go up there. That leads to trouble. That leads to heresy. That leads to you falling away from God. I don't buy that. I think those questions lead us to a place of greater faith and greater understanding. Now, there might be times, I'll just forewarning, there might be times where we go, there are more questions here than we have answers. Right. We have to be okay with that ambiguity.
Yeah. Well, and I think a little bit what you said too is I think we can then easily fall into where the Pharisees were, right? This is how it's always been. This is how Dad taught it. This is how Grandpa taught it, right? Yep. And you're going, right, so where's the grace? Where's the mercy? Where are all of those things? And so, we have in our tradition, and I'm 99% sure the saying is not original with us. I think it was maybe Augustine or whatever. But the idea, right, in essentials, unity, and non-essentials, there's freedom, and in all things, love. And as much as we say that that's one of our slogans, we still have, we have but it's like, well, come on, right? And it's right. It goes back to this jazz thing, right? Are we all on the same page? I really believe we are, right? You're not preaching a different Jesus. You're not, I don't think anybody here in St. Louis is or in Elma. But again, you may do that a little different, right? You may take a little liberties here of freedom, right? That's the freedom part. There's freedom to do things a little differently. But hopefully in all these things we have love and not suspicion or mistrust or I don't think they're going to be in heaven. If they're not going to be, we're screwed too, Right. So it's like, but again, hopefully being able to bring more and more people in concert, right? In concert together, moving forward in a biblical direction, in a Christ-honoring direction. So, it's going
to be good. We're going to tackle some heavy stuff, looking at some of the history of the church and its impact on the world and the Judeo-Christian values, looking at politics, looking at social issues like poverty.
Is there an election coming
up? And realizing that, our faith for a long time, and this has just kind of been our working, the place from which we kind of work, is that the gospel of Jesus Christ offers more than just salvation of a soul for heaven someday. And really this all kind of started back during the COVID shutdown when we were having these conversations for our online church services, and one of the conversations was all about what's the nature of the gospel. Is it personal salvation by faith, or is it Jesus is King? And we made the claim that the gospel is Jesus is King, and that if that is the heart of the gospel, then that is far more dynamic, and that it has far greater reach and impact in our lives, in our communities, in our world, than just Christ came so we can be saved and go to heaven someday. And so gospel jazz, the heart behind this is exploring the something more, exploring the dynamic, exploring the far-reaching effects of a king who lived briefly and died violently and rose victoriously, if I can take Will Williman's statement. And trying to understand the impact that has in our life, in our ministries, in our communities. And so we're going to talk about the hard stuff. And like you said, we might create more questions than we can answer. But that's our hope.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, in returning to the Hebrew passage, right, trying to move beyond those elementary things. Yeah. As we talked before we hit the record button there, we have the thing of, baptism or speaking in tongues or the baptism of the Holy Spirit, and to me, the writer of Hebrews and Paul, whoever else, I really feel it in their mind. They go, these are just elementary things, right? It is about faith and hope and love, and these are the greater things we should be striving towards. And, you can believe a little differently than I do, and that's okay. Because again, right, we're all staying within that metaphor of jazz, right? We're all part of the band. Yeah. You just might be playing a little different instrument than I'm playing, and
it fits in the framework.
Absolutely. And again, I think especially what we've seen since COVID or during COVID, where we're what is this? Mid-July, well, not quite mid-August. So July, mid-August.
We don't want to go backwards.
I know. Good gravy. It really is. I mean, we need to be more unified now than ever.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, as I understand it about jazz, and I am by no means a musician. I'm probably the one that you couldn't teach to do that. But while there's a framework, there's not a script. That's for music, from what I do know about music is you play what's on the page. Yeah. And with jazz, it's a lot of improv. It's a lot of hearing what the music is doing and then going with the flow and recalibrating and just kind of and that's ministry. That's life in the church, probably more so in this day and age, in the 21st century, not even just COVID, but just how dramatically our world has changed in the last 20 years, and the impact that has had on the church. That as the church, as leaders in the church, as Christians, we can't just play the music on the page, so to speak, and do the things that we've always done, and look at what look at things too simply. We have to be willing to improv, go with the flow, evaluate how the music around us is changing, what's going on, and then decide what do we do next, and what does it and evolve and continuing to be the people of God. Being the people of God is not a static state of being. It's a way of posturing ourselves, way of living in the world that requires us to be in tune with the world, and respond and improv with the world, and being the light. So I think that's another piece of the metaphor of jazz is that improv and going with the flow.
At the risk of mixing our metaphors too much here, a couple months ago when you first pitched this, one of the things I thought of was hockey. I was in high school there in the mid-'90s as the Red Wings were having great success, and the Soviet Union was crumbling, and all these guys were coming out of Russia and getting into the NHL. And the Red Wings, there's 3 or 4 documentaries out there you can watch, but they grabbed all these guys, and there was just a different style of playing hockey. And instead of the dump and run or the dump and chase, these guys would just hang on to the puck, and they would move it around, and they might even move backwards, with just the same thing. Just seemed, why aren't you moving forwards? You're not attacking the net. And it's just that same thing. We're still playing hockey. We're still playing the game. We're not breaking any of the rules, right? I think kind of like what you said earlier, right? We're not throwing anything out, or we're just coming at it a little differently. And it wasn't just like one team had to adapt to the Red Wings. It changed the entire NHL and how hockey was played. And so, and again, I think we are right. We're in a time right now in our world where it's the game's still the same, the rules, but man, it's you've got to learn how to adapt.
Yeah.
Certainly. So,
well, something that you had said about because playing what's on the page. So any musician that's decent, who understands how to read music, can pick up a piece of music and play what's on the page. Any musician worth their salt. I am not that kind of musician. I do not read music at all. But a good musician can pick up a page and read what's there and play it. Part of the improvisation of jazz is exactly what you said, playing what's not there. Mm-hmm. And the really good jazz, if you listen, especially like old school jazz, and I'm talking like from the 40s and maybe even the 30s, you hear some of those early recordings, and you hear a jazz band, kind of an ensemble, they'll kind of, and a lot of them will stop playing and they'll just listen to one guy kind of go off on a solo. And you can hear the voices of the other players in the band who have stopped to listen to the one guy, and they will be cracking up laughing. And what they're laughing at is because whoever's playing, that guy, isn't playing it like he did the night before, and they expect him to play a certain note, and he doesn't. And it's kind of funny to the guys who get the joke, who are kind of in on it. Really good jazz musicians, not only do they not play what's not on the page, but it makes sense. It fits with the entire framework of the song. It doesn't detract from it. This is the really cool thing about jazz musicians. We're in an ensemble. You go ahead and play a solo, and it kills that night. The other musicians don't care. Mm-hmm. They're happy for, man, that was awesome. Yeah. That killed on that song. I had it last night, but that was you tonight. Yeah. They don't care. They celebrate the other musician who just brings it on a given night. That's kind of what we need to be doing from a gospel standpoint, is celebrating the other musicians who are stepping to the forefront and playing a solo or bringing a part of a song that nobody's ever heard before. I'm a big believer in that what the Bible has to tell us has not been exhausted. I mean, we live in a culture that says, I want to learn as much as I can. I want to experience as much as I can. I want to go to the ends of the earth to find the new thing. Except a lot of times that doesn't make its way into the church. And we go, well, what my grandparents did was good enough. Man, I just can't believe that was what God intended with his word and his engagement in culture today. Mm-hmm. There's more to play.
Oh my gosh. Right. Absolutely. So we're excited. Yeah. We're excited. We have about the whole year mapped out. Again, as Jake had alluded to a little while ago here, some different topics. And again,
we're going to try and release these on Tuesdays.
Yes, that's the goal.
We're going to try. We're going to try. That is the intent, that on Tuesdays, beginning here in just a short time, we will have more content to be released. And we hope you will log in, you'll follow us, you'll pay attention, you'll
learn
engage.
Something.
Yeah.
Get beyond those elementary.
Yeah. And I would dare say that the learning is not just going to be one-sided. I think that we are going to, part of what we're going to try and do is learn alongside one another, and that show that even those who are in leadership positions like us, there's a lot more to be experienced and learned.
Yeah, that's the truth. So Bruce Lee said, right? Bruce Lee said, "I'm not a master, right? I'm a student master."
Yeah.
You know, that was always, I'm a student first.
Yes.
You think Bruce Lee? Still, yeah.
Right.
Still learning. So, well, hey, thank you, and look forward to you. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all those things, whatever. And we'll shoot for every Tuesday. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.